All right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And thank you so much for joining us today for this very exciting first look at Metasys Release 11 by Johnson Controls. I know for those of us who are from Johnson Controls who are presenting today, I know we're all really excited to be presenting this to you. And we want to really thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join us. And once again, we're just really excited to be able to share this really exciting new feature-rich release of Metasys. So before we begin, I wanted to just take a minute to introduce today's speaker. So first up is Chris Lane, who's the Director of Metasys Product Management, and he joins us today from our headquarters in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In his role, Chris leads a team of product managers responsible for the Metasys product line, some of whom I will be introducing here shortly. We have Senior Product Manager Dimitri Papadopoulos, who is joining us from New Jersey today, and he is responsible for Metasys semantic data, fault detection, and advanced algorithms in his role. Next up is Metasys Product Manager Dana Guthrie, and she is responsible for managing the Metasys user interface and server platforms, and she joins us from Milwaukee as well, as is Product Manager Liana Domina. She's joining us from Milwaukee, and in her role, Liana is responsible for managing the Metasys Equipment Controller products portfolio. And last but certainly not least, we're joined by Horace Lee, who is the Metasys Product Manager for Asia Pacific, and will be monitoring the questions coming in during today's session. So speaking of, before I quickly walk through the agenda for today's meeting, I did want to let everyone know that today's presentation is being recorded. So if you or your colleagues would like to view this and watch it later, the copy of the recording as well as the copy of the presentation will be made available shortly after the live event. And we will be reserving some time at the end of today's session for questions and answers. So please feel free, we encourage you to submit your questions via the questions panel via GoToWebinar at any point throughout today's presentation, and we'll do our best to address those questions at the end. If for whatever reason we run out of time and we're not able to address everyone's questions during the live event, we'll certainly publish those in a frequently asked questions document along with a copy of the recording and a copy of today's presentation. So again, we really encourage you to submit your questions at any point throughout today's presentation. So the agenda today is really pretty simple and straightforward. We're going to start with what's new with Metasys software, specifically looking at the Metasys UI. We'll talk a little bit about some modernization opportunities that come at Metasys Release 11, as well as a quick refresher of our new Open Application Server, or OAS, which was first introduced at Release 10.1. Then we'll move into what's new with Metasys hardware, including the new and expanded CG and CD series of equipment controllers, and the new and enhanced SNC and SNE series of network engines and controllers. And then we'll conclude with some cybersecurity enhancements. But first, we'll kick things off with some messaging from Chris Lane.
Thanks, Jane. And I too want to thank everyone for taking the time out of your day today and joining us to learn more about what is new with Metasys. Before we begin, I just wanted to mention a little bit something about the year 2020. I think it's been a very challenging and difficult year. And to say that it was challenging and difficult would actually be an understatement. I don't think anyone would have predicted the kind of events that have transpired this year, and certainly not us here at Johnson Controls. This year was supposed to have been a year of celebration as we embarked on the 30-year anniversary of Metasys, our flagship building automation system product. Metasys was indeed first released into the market at the AHR Expo in Chicago in 1990. And if you take a look back at what was going on back in 1990, the world has certainly changed, and especially from a technology perspective. Looking back to 1990, it was the very first web page was published, marking the very beginning of the internet as we know it. 1990 was also the year when the depletion of the ozone layer above the Arctic Circle was first observed. And I think both of those events have had significant impact on our industry specifically. And a lot of the things have certainly changed in these last 30 years, and Metasys is no different. But the one consistent thing that has stayed the same with Metasys over the past 30 years is that it's regularly been updated and improved with new software, new hardware, new tools, delivering new automation solutions. So Metasys 11 is our latest release, and it's part of an overall modernization strategy that really began with Metasys releases 7, 8, and 9, where we introduced a brand new Metasys user interface. And that user interface is a mobile-friendly, device-agnostic interface that organizes information in a much more intuitive manner and delivers better insights to help operators make better decisions about how to control their buildings. And then at Metasys 10, we included the first of a brand new family of equipment controllers, and you'll hear more about additions to that family and how we're expanding it now here at Release 11. And about a year ago at Metasys 10.1, we introduced a brand new modernized family of our network engines, the SNE and SNC series network engines. And again, you'll be hearing more about how that family is expanding here at Release 11. We'll also share with you some additional improvements that are included as part of Release 11, intended to make Metasys easier to use, as well as more cyber secure. So, Metasys is ultimately intended to help you, our customers, make the most out of your building systems. And to that end, we'd like to hear from you, and we'd like to understand more about what sort of day-to-day challenges that you're facing in regards to building automation. So we'd like for your participation in a short poll in specifically answering the best response to the question, what is your primary building automation related challenge in your day-to-day activities? So if you could, please select all that apply. Identify and troubleshoot issues, update aging system components, remotely monitoring equipment, viewing trends and alarms, maintaining cybersecurity requirements that keep the IT department happy, or if there's others. So please take some time and select which ones resonate with you the most.
Thanks, Chris. We do have a number of results coming in. And for those of you who selected other, feel free to put your other primary challenge in the chat feature so we can understand a little bit more about what your day-to-day challenges look like. We'll give everyone just another 10 to 15 seconds to participate. Okay, so we're going to close the poll out, and it looks like pretty overwhelmingly, 77% of you selected identifying and troubleshooting issues as your #1 challenge, followed pretty closely by the ability to remotely monitor equipment, view trends, etc., then updating aging system components, and maintaining cybersecurity enhancements that keep IT happy. So thank you so much for participating. That's really insightful for us. I think what you'll find on the next slide with Chris is that a lot of these challenges are going to be, Metasys 11 will help you manage a lot of those day-to-day activities. So Chris, we will turn it back over to you.
Great, thanks, Jane. And yeah, as you can see here are some of the specific quotes that we've captured during our customer sessions, our voice of customer sessions, where we've asked customers to provide us with their feedback. And you can see that many of these specific quotes and feedback are in alignment with your answers to our previous poll. So that first quote there, I need clear and easy ways to help identify and troubleshoot issues. That was our #1 response to the poll question. And don't just tell me what the issue is, tell me how to fix it. Or I know some of my system components are old, but I don't know where to start. What if the features I like in my current system are no longer available? What is my upgrade and migration path? Or give me a way to quickly monitor equipment status and view alarms and see trends while I'm away from my desk, even without logging into my system. And if my IT team requires certain cybersecurity standards, how can I be sure that my system meets those requirements? And again, I think that these pieces of feedback are well in alignment with some of the responses that you provided. And hopefully you'll hear about specific answers to those areas in our presentation today. So I want to start by handing it off to Dimitri, who will share with you what is new with our new fault detection and fault triage features.
Thank you, Chris. So I was very excited to see those poll results because I believe fault detection and fault triage really addresses the biggest part of your concern in quite a new and unique way. So we have included 2 new licensable features. They are fault detection and fault triage. So they're an additional license to your server, and it would be available on an ADS, an ADX, or even an OAS. And really what you'll see is we're trying to help in 2 different areas. We're trying to help in having features that don't require a lot of configuration, and we're also trying to help end users identify and solve problems very quickly. So you'll see that with the configuration, for instance, that if you're already configuring your Metasys user interface, your spaces, your equipment, and you're using our standard names, very quickly it's easy for us to identify systems, points, and the things necessary for fault detection to occur. So you'll see that you really have this high value feature set, which you'll see returns out of right away. So I'll start here with just describing quickly the difference between, say, a fault and alarm, because we know today Metasys has alarming in both the site management portal and in the user interface. But an alarm really is based off of maybe 1 or 2 parameters, thresholds per se, and then maybe a delay or 2. With faults, there's many more parameters that are involved. It could be within that system or outside of that system, but they're really all focused on a certain fault. So that's the high level difference of a fault and an alarm. And being that faults are different than alarms, you won't find the faults in an alarm summary or with the alarms. You'll be seeing them here in the potential problem areas widget. So previously, this widget contained a list of points that were, say, not in a normal status or object status. What you'll see here is that there's a new tab. So we have 2 tabs here. The existing functionality still remains, and that you would click on the points tab to find that functionality. But the new faults tab is also available, and you'll see here a list of faults. So depending on what you have licensed, if you just have fault detection licensed, you'd see this list, and instead of maybe, say, the hyperlink on HU low supply pressure, which takes you somewhere else, you'd maybe just see that in bold text. So it's just a list and not necessarily having the diagnostics of fault triage. And you'll also see some less information. When you have both licenses, so you license fault detection and fault triage, that is what we're looking at here. So I have a hyperlink, which we'll show you in a minute where that takes you to, but that'll take you to fault triage if I clicked on, say, the VAV low zone temperature. But we have some more information. So we have a severity. So you'll see a color and the word medium, telling you that's a medium severity fault. We'll have a number of occurrences. So on that VAV low zone temperature, we have 7 occurrences. And then finally, a total duration. So all those 7 occurrences happened over 9 hours of time. And then finally, you'll see something that says 1 total. So we actually roll up all the faults for a particular equipment, this one being VAV 6-2, and if it had more than one fault occurring, similar to the HU low supply pressure, you'll see two faults. So we're trying to keep this list relatively small. We've gotten customer feedback that they're already inundated with too many alarms. Could you give me a smaller list that's more manageable? And what we're really truly trying to do with this list is drive the worst problem to the top of the list. And you could think of it as a punch list of items to go work on. So if I only had one thing to work on today, I might just start with the HU low supply pressure. But let's take the VAV low zone temperature as an example. And if I were to click on that, I would get a new web browser tab with fault triage. So fault triage is really the exciting portion, and really other systems may show faults within their systems, but what we try to address was the need of customers having, say, maybe less experienced employees, and we're really trying to provide an interface that helps them identify the problem and solve the problem as quickly as possible. And that's what fault triage is there to do. So I'll take you through kind of the layout first, and then we'll walk through how somebody might use this interface here. Towards the top left, you'll see details. So here I could navigate to the equipment for live data on this particular system. I could go to any spaces that it might serve. And I also see the occurrences and durations that we saw in the potential problem areas widget. If I look to the right top, I see the name of the fault, but I also see all the criteria with which this fault would occur. So for this particular one, right, I need to be occupied for a certain amount of time, and I also need the zone temperature to be, a distance away from the set point for a certain amount of time to therefore go into fault. You'll see we have a graph. What's nice about the graph and what's nice about all of fault detection is, again, once if you configure the user interface for Metasys, all of this is created automatically. So nobody has to configure the screen or say what trends they want. They're all going to get the information that's related to a low zone temperature. So we're utilizing a semantic database in the background to automatically populate what makes sense for this particular fault. We do that across the board. I'll come back to the left-hand side again. You'll see a list of possible causes. And this was another area where we said, well, how do we put a lot of experience into somebody that may not have a lot of experience's hands, right? So we got together our subject matter experts on HVAC controls. They had combined 150 years of knowledge, and we put together this knowledge database, which in their experience, what was the most frequently the cause of the things for a low zone temperature. And we also put them in the order of the likeliness that they saw them within their experience. So it's really nice. We'd expect the user to take a top-down approach, but you could, if you have a more experienced person that knows this equipment, they could also maybe start in the middle if they need to. And then finally, we have activity. So as somebody is going through the possible causes, which we'll show you in a minute, we're, say, making a little bit of a audit there in the activity log, and somebody also could add a note. So let's take a look at this specific one and kind of walk through how somebody might use it. So again, we looked at the low zone temperature. Well, I can look at the graph that was automatically created for me, and by highlighting over some of the data points, I can see here that at 9:35 a.m., somebody had overridden the damper. And you'd notice in the chart that the chart color is filled in with the Metasys color for override. And you can see as he overrode that the temperature, which shows above it in yellow, first it was in warning, low warning, and then it went into alarm until it got into its fault area. And you could see the shaded pink area is the actual duration for that fault. If I go ahead and then hover over towards the end of that, I could see now that that override was released, and within a short amount of time, the zone temperature will go back under control again. So you could see by the graph that he released the override and then normal control is back in place. Finally, now that I see that I'm clear that somebody has overridden this, I can go to the possible causes, open up the overrides out of service and unreliable. And if I see the last option there, output overridden, it says investigate the cause for the override and follow any safety procedures prior to releasing the output override, validate expected control. So I can reach out to the person who actually did this override. I can find out the information, and then finally I could go in and add a note, and I can basically let other users know, because there might be more people on the system working on this. Next slide, please. So I can go ahead and solve the issue. And next slide. And then put in a note that you know, a technician was working with a torch and he, you know, accidentally overrode the damper, thinking that, you know, he wanted to get more cold air in the space while he was working there. So as you can see, whether it's somebody less experienced with controls or experienced in controls, there's really a dedicated way for them to review the system, review the faults, and then go through the possible causes until they can find the root cause of whatever fault they're looking at. So we're really excited to get this out in the field. We feel that our end customers are going to appreciate that. Maybe with less experienced people, they don't have to be so reliant on more experienced people, and they'll be able to use this tool to actually not only just solve problems, but even learn on the job while they're solving those problems. So we're excited to get this out to you, and also hear back from you how your customers are using this. So next, I think we have Dana, and she's going to talk about some more productivity things in the Metasys user interface.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dimitri. So as Dimitri mentioned, we're going to quickly walk through some of the additional feature enhancements that we've made for within the Metasys user interface. One thing that I'll just point out as we kind of talk through this, and as we think back to the poll that Chris and Jane put out there to you guys earlier in your response on being able to quickly identify and troubleshoot issues within the system. A lot of the, you know, features and functionality and things that we prioritize to get within this Metasys 11 release, thinking about fault detection and some of the other things that we're going to speak to, is intended to help with just that. So the first feature that we'll speak to is a feature that I'm very proud of, which is called our show involvement feature. One thing that I noticed when I sat down with Metasys customers who are troubleshooting and trying to manage their facilities is a lot of their time is spent just navigating through, you know, once you find that there is an issue, or, you know, you have mechanical equipment in an unexpected state, or you found that something's an alarm, for example, navigating through the system to identify what is trying to impact it and what would cause it to get into that state is something that can be somewhat time consuming, and also for newer, less experienced facilities guys, it can take some time to just learn, to get over that learning curve. So we've introduced show involvement as a way to give, from a single view, a glimpse as to what all is trying to impact a particular object within the Metasys system. So that could be what is, trying to command it, what's trying to write to it, or what is referencing it. This feature is accessible through the building network, so there's no configuration or anything required. And really the intent is, like I said, when you identify that something's wrong, you can go to that object, see all of the things that are trying to impact it. We're going to highlight the objects that are actually trying to write the present value and the present priority, to kind of give you a glimpse as to this object actually has the ability to impact it at its current state, and you'll view that from the single screen. What this does is it allows you to know, hey, is there, is this just something that I can release the override on? Is it being controlled by an upstream schedule? Or do I need to dig deeper? Do I need to actually go and look into more of the logic that's impacting this object? But the whole intent is to give a single view into everything that is impacting a particular object, and also what that object is also trying to impact. This is something that we've been progressing towards with in MUI for some time now. Our customers who are using MUI in their facilities are saying, hey, we're getting some great features. We love the enhancements or the ease of use of, for example, the alarm manager, and how you do the roll-ups and everything. But I really wish that I could add trends or do some simple additions or edits within the system. We now have the ability to do so from Metasys UI without needing to jump into SCT or without needing to go back into Site Management Portal. You can now, from the building network, add, delete, and configure objects within your system. So I think we're going to walk through an example. It's very simple to do. So if you take a look at the building network to the left, you'll notice that we've now added a plus sign and a trash can to the building network. If you click the plus sign, you'll get a pop-up dialog that walks you through a series of screens that allow you to add objects to the object that you're located on within the building network. This is continuing our SMP to Metasys user interface modernization plan. So we are really working aggressively to help our customers get to a single user interface. So in the past, we had Site Management Portal, and we've gradually kind of gone through this progression of porting things from SMP to MUI. I think that you'll find at 11.0, we did a really large jump in helping, such that I would imagine that 80% of the things that you need to do within the user interface or within your UI can be done from MUI. And then at 12.0, I think we're closing that gap even more aggressively. So you guys will see, and you should have already seen some of the communications coming out around the end of support or phasing out of Site Management Portal gradually. We're going to continue to communicate those things to you guys and try to be as transparent as possible to make sure that this is a smooth transition. We really want to kind of have you guys communicating with your customers is increasingly urgent to protect the data in your buildings and gain measurable results in requiring up-to-date Metasys installations. So we're going to continue to have those communications with you guys and gradually walk you through the modernization process. The OAS. So back at 10.1, we introduced the OAS platform. The intent, if you guys aren't familiar, the OAS combines both the server functionality with that of our supervisory device functionality. So not only can it control or can it have network engines reporting into it, it also can have field devices speaking directly to it. We wanted to have somewhat of a lower cost option for our customers. So maybe a customer couldn't afford an ADS. I know this is different in your region because you have the ADS Lite, but we've also introduced another variation of the OAS at 11.0 called the OAS Min. And this was actually done as a result of some of the communication with your region of the world, understanding that we needed another variant that was even more affordable than our OAS standard. So we've now introduced the OAS Minimal, which allows only up to 200 field devices reporting into it, and allows our customers to get in at a more reasonable price, more affordable price, and gradually scale and grow their systems over time. The OAS Min has a lot of the same features and capabilities as what we released when we released the OAS standard, as far as allowing you to license additional features and functionality. Only in those scenarios where the customer so desires it. And again, we also still do have the ability to turnkey this offering such that you cut on the installation costs. So in that case, if you bought an OAS turnkey, and that's OAS minimum or an OAS standard, you would get the hardware device with the Metasys prerequisites as well as Metasys software already installed. You would simply have to license that software once you receive the box on site.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dana. I think we're going to transition over to Liana to talk about our next generation equipment controllers.
Great, thanks, Jane. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here to talk to you about what's new with our next generation equipment controllers. So at Metasys Release 10, we introduced the first two members of a brand new next generation equipment controller family, an 18-point general purpose application MSTP controller and an 8-point VAV box MSTP controller, which are pictured here on the slide. With Release 11, we're introducing new models that is further expanding this next generation equipment controller family. But before we move into the details of the new models, I just want to provide an overview of some of the features that are common to this new family of controllers. These controllers have a new modern design with black enclosures and rounded corners, and include models with denser inputs and outputs and models with more onboard I/O than the FAC family of controllers. This allows them to be easily utilized for like retrofit applications, for example, or if you have an existing panel where you need to replace a controller. These models feature removable screw terminals for all field wiring connections that allow for convenient, quick, and easy installation and servicing. They also feature rotary dial switches for device addressing, so it makes it a little easier to set and read those addresses without the need to manually convert from binary to decimal as you do with dip switches on the existing FEC family of controllers. So all these features make it more efficient for technicians to work on them and can lead to a reduction in installation and service costs. This family includes models that support BACnet MSTP and are software switchable for N2 networking, which enables these controllers to be interoperable with N2 networks without the need to purchase a special model and without any extra setup, since these controllers will auto-detect the communication protocol that they're connected to. The new family of equipment controllers have faster microprocessors with significantly more memory, which enables support for our new software features and also leaves ample room for future software upgrades. At Release 11, we've expanded the family by adding a 10-point general purpose application MSTP controller. This model is very similar to the 18-point CGM that was introduced at Release 10. However, the CGM 04060 is smaller, has fewer onboard I/O, and is offered at a lower price point than the 18-point CGM. The CGM 04060 features 4 inputs and 6 outputs and is a successor to the smaller FEC 1611 field equipment controller. This model is an affordable option for controlling smaller or less sophisticated equipment like a fan coil unit or a small simple air handling unit. We're also introducing an 8-point VAV box MSTP controller with an integral potentiometer to sense actual damper position, the CVM 03050-0P. The actual damper position is represented as a data point that can be seen in the Metasys UI, and there are also built-in diagnostics that identify when a mismatch of commanded versus actual position occurs. This allows you to easily confirm and troubleshoot VAV controller operations, confirm that the actuator is at the desired position, and also track the damper position. And finally, we're introducing a new offering of expansion input-output point modules, the XPM series. XPMs can be connected to the SA bus of an equipment controller to expand the I/O that can be brought into an application. They can also be connected on the FC bus of a network engine. These models support the newer generation of equipment controllers and engines that we're presenting here today, but they're also backward compatible to work with the existing series of engines and controllers like the NAE, NCE, and the FEC family of controllers. This series provides options that cost effectively meet control project requirements. There are 3 new XPMs available at this release: the XPM 18000 featuring 18 binary inputs, the XPM 09090 featuring 9 inputs and 9 outputs, and the XPM 04060 featuring 4 inputs and 6 outputs. So that completes the equipment controller update for Metasys Release 11. Now I'll pass it on to Chris to talk about the network engine products.
Great. So what is new with our network engines? Well, for those of you who are not familiar with our network engines, these components provide supervisory type control over networks of equipment controllers, like the ones that Liana just described. Network engines manage and integrate network field devices, and then they coordinate their control as part of a larger system. So they can provide like scheduling or occupancy scheduling services, or system-wide logic and services like interlocking and coordinating the occupancy schedules for multiple rooms. And before we dig into what is new with our family of network engines at Release 11, I wanted to quickly review the family of engines that were introduced last year at Release 10.1. So at 10.1 was when we actually introduced this brand new family of modernized network engines, which we call the SNE and SNC series. The SNE are our network automation engines, and the SNC series is a hybrid. It combines the capabilities of a network engine plus those of an equipment controller, all in one unified package. And these new series of network engines are intended to succeed our previous legacy NAE and NCE series of network engines and network control engines. And this new family, this new modernized family, includes several new features that are common across the entire family. So first of all, you'll see that the new family is much smaller than their predecessors. In fact, if you take a look at our old legacy NAE 55 series, which is our largest capacity legacy network engine, the new SNE is about 60% smaller than the NAE 55. Takes up way less space and can fit into smaller control panels, potentially saving you quite significantly on installation costs. And the new SNE and SNC series engines feature a larger assortment of field productivity capabilities and features, like more LEDs with different colors to help with the initial commissioning or troubleshooting of the device. We've replaced the battery with a supercapacitor to handle the shutdown. So there's nothing to service or replace as far as maintenance is concerned of these devices. We've introduced a concept called background file transfer, which is a way to transfer main code and application code or archives to the device while it is still operating, so that initial provisioning is more streamlined and less disruptive to the overall system. The SNE series engines have dual input power, 24 volt AC and 24 volt DC, so that you can use a backup power supply, like a battery for system resiliency in case that you have buildings that have frequent power outages. You want to keep your network engines running through those power outages. And similar to the equipment controllers, all of our network engines also feature the removable screw terminal blocks, which really make it easier for the installation and servicing. These new SNE and SNC series engines are also much more cyber secure than their predecessors and even to some of our competitive offerings. The underlying operating system is Linux, which is a modern, robust, very well supported embedded device type operating system. And we also use a technique called secure boot, which is used to prevent malicious or hacked code from loading or installing itself during the startup process, which is a technique that hackers use to take over an embedded device. So we have prevention built into the device itself. The new SNC and SNE series family is similar to the equipment controllers in that they have more memory and faster microprocessors. And really the advantages that this provides is that they are able to handle future upgrades and giving them a long operational and sustainable life cycle. So now let's move on to, now that we've reviewed what came out at 10.1, let's talk about what is coming here that is new with 11.0. So really the main addition to the family is with the SNC series network control engine. Again, this is a hybrid offering, combines the capabilities of a network automation engine with that of an equipment controller, all in one unified hardware and software package. And the new models that we're adding here at this release are models that include an onboard display and keypad. So this local user interface allows field technicians or users to come up to the device and look through the colorful, clear display and monitor equipment status, to view alarms, to issue overrides like manual commands, to change set points, to change parameters. And then something that we're excited about that's brand new to our family of controllers and local displays is the ability to view historical trended data points right from the onboard display, giving field technicians kind of a look back in history about what has occurred over the past several days, all within a graphical, clear, high resolution display. What this does is it provides local access to users like mechanics or field technicians who need information about the mechanical equipment very quickly, and also the ability to restore order or to put the controller into a temporary state, all without having to go like back to their office where their Metasys workstation might be located. Let's go to the slide here. Some of the other design details that we've added to the SNC include a second Ethernet port. So that is new. This can be used as like a tool access port. It could also be used to daisy chain network the BACnet IP networking between controllers. One thing to point out is we do not yet support our media redundant protocol or our ring topology with this second Ethernet port, but that will be coming in a future software upgrade. And everything else here is standard capabilities of our SNC offering, including the rotary dials and the ability to expand your integrations using USB ports or the FC port or the SA bus. Okay, so release 11 really completes the introduction of our brand new modernized Gen 4 network engine family that started back at release 10.1. And these new SNE and SNC series network engines are intended to be the successors to our legacy NAE and NCE series network engines. These legacy network engines are approaching the end of their product life cycle. So if you are an existing customer who has a Metasys installation, and you probably have some of our legacy network engines installed, wanted to take some time here to point out the timing of when our legacy NAE and NCE series engines will go end of software support and when we will stop manufacturing them. So starting with the smaller capacity network engines like the NAE 35, the NAE 45, and the NCE. These models are going end of software support very soon, January 1st. We announced this several months to years back when we introduced the 907 update. After that timeframe, after January 1st, we have no more plans to offer software updates or patches targeted to these particular models. We will continue to manufacture them to provide customers with a transition period, and also to provide a supply for replacement part purposes, probably for at least another 2 years and possibly more. Now down to the larger capacity network engines like the NAE 55 series or the NAE 59 series. These are larger capacity devices, so they are able to handle some of our future software support. The NAE 55 with the -2 suffix and the -3 suffix series, they will support being upgraded to release 11, the release that's coming out here, as well as the -3 suffix will also support being upgraded to our next release, release 12.0, which will be coming out sometime next year, probably late 2021. The NAE 55 with the -2 suffix, those have already been discontinued from manufacture. The -3s, though, we will continue to manufacture those for at least another 2 years, and again, possibly more, to support the transition period and to support replacement parts needs. Our software engines, like the NAE 85 and LCS 85, since those are software-only products and are typically installed on like a customer-provided host, like a blade server or a virtual machine within a hosted server offering within the customer's premise, those software engines will continue to be supported for the long-term future. No plans to end software support on those anytime soon. So hopefully this information will be helpful for those of you who happen to be existing customers and have these devices installed in your facilities, and help you understand where we are at with our product lifecycle. And I suggest reaching out to your local Johnson Controls Metasys sales representative to start having discussions about what your upgrade and support plan might be if you do have these legacy devices installed in your building and are interested in getting a more modern controller platform that has a longer life cycle ahead of it. And then last but certainly not least, we want to go over some of the new cybersecurity improvements that are being introduced here at Release 11. And let's start with what might be a new or an unfamiliar acronym and its definition, FIPS 140-2. So FIPS 140 is a cybersecurity standard that is created and managed by the United States government, and it governs the cryptographic modules and algorithms that are used for data encryption. So FIPS 140-2 compliance is one of the more stronger cybersecurity standards where if you're compliant to it, it helps prevent unauthorized access to network systems and its data. And this standard is finding its way into control specifications, and it's not just for US government facilities, but it's also being spec'd in other facilities that have business critical operations, buildings like banks or hospitals and medical centers or data centers, where a breach of data could have some very serious financial or reputation consequences. At Release 11, we are also including support for FIPS 11-2 compliance in our Metasys server as an optional add-on license. And that helps to give you the option of selecting whether you want to use FIPS compliance and its stronger encryption algorithms or not. And if you may want to not choose that to be backwards compatible to network engines that do not support FIPS. We are also supporting FIPS 140 compliance on all network engines that have been upgraded to release 11 as a default. So it's not an add-on license per se, but as soon as you upgrade the network engine image to 11.0, those engines then become FIPS 140-2 compliant, and they use the specific encryption algorithms defined by the FIPS 140-2 standard. Some of the other features related to cybersecurity that are being added at release 11 are ADFS integration. So ADFS is an acronym that stands for Active Directory Federation Services. And that is a single sign-on solution that was developed by Microsoft. That solution, that ADFS solution, provides some interesting capabilities to prevent unauthorized access, such as two-factor authentication, so that when Metasys is integrated to the ADFS single sign-on system, you can provide an added logon step to ensure that only authorized users are gaining access to Metasys. And then finally, our cyber health dashboard. It's been updated to allow the ability to export its information to a PDF report, which then can be used either as documented evidence of compliance to certain IT cybersecurity standards, or just to have as a handy report that can be emailed and shared with other operators. Our cyber health dashboard is an award-winning dashboard that provides insights about the cybersecurity posture of Metasys, including user activity, status of your security certificates, whether they are due to expire or not, the levels of software that your components are at, and if they need to be upgrading. All that kind of information is captured within the cyber health dashboard and presented within the Metasys user interface. So those are the main highlights of Metasys 11.0. And if you think about the poll responses to the responses to those poll questions, as well as the feedback that I shared from other customers about what building automation challenges you and others like yourselves have, you can see where Metasys 11 really should help you out. The new fault detection and fault triage and show involvement features, they provide very clear and easy ways for operators to identify, troubleshoot, and resolve issues. The new onboard display feature on the new SNC series network control engines provide quick and easy ways for local operators to monitor equipment status, look at alarms, and see trends, all while physically near the equipment that the controller is operating. Our new modernized equipment controllers and our new modernized network engine family, they provide successors to many of our older legacy Metasys components that may be going end of support or end of life, and they have room for accepting future upgrades, so they are future ready. And then finally, our new cybersecurity features, such as FIPS 140 compliance, our support of two-factor authentication via the ADFS support, and the cybersecurity health dashboard provides reassurance that Metasys is a cybersecure and IT compliant offering. So to that end, I want to once again thank you for attending today and listening to our presentation. And I think now we have a little bit of time to answer any potential questions that you might have.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Liana, Dana, and Dimitri. Very informative. And thank you again, like Chris said, for everyone for attending. So do feel free to submit your questions here in the last couple of minutes. We already have had some great questions come in. So we'll kind of just go ahead and take these in no particular order. So this is probably a question for Dana. So Dana, maybe you can talk a little bit more about is SMP or Site Management Portal, our legacy user interface, is that going away at release 12, or what's the plan for Site Management Portal at release 12?
Sure, I can speak to that. So Site Management Portal is not being absolutely taken away at 12.0, but we are having conversations around licensing it. The intent is to make sure that we get the bulk of, if not all of, site management portals functionality ported to Metasys user interface, such that customers won't have to rely on site management portal. So you'll see a large chunk of functionality, not only in 11, but also at 12, make its way into MUI.
Great, thank you. Another question that we got. So this has actually come up a few times, and I think it's a really interesting question. So this is probably for Liana and Chris. So can you explain a little bit more about what the names or the acronyms CG and CV mean when referring to the new equipment controller lines, and what that naming convention might mean?
Sure, I can do that. So CGM, the C in the acronym is stands for controller, G being general purpose, and the M is MSTP. The CVM is controller, VAV box, so the V is for VAV box, and the M is for MSTP. The numbers following those acronyms, CVM or CGM, the 09090, so the first two digits, 09, represents the number of inputs, and then the following two digits represents the number of outputs.
Great, thank you, Liana. Another question that we get rather frequently, and that is, is Johnson Controls going to be releasing more new IP controllers as part of the Metasys product line?
Yes, those right now we have plans targeting next summer for Ethernet models. Those would be CGE, so E for Ethernet, and CVE models targeting next summer.
Okay, and those would be part of the new next generation equipment controller family, right, Liana? Not the quote unquote legacy gray controllers that already have existing IP models. That right? Maybe you could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so those will be part of the next generation family. So they'll have a lot of the similar features where we discussed today, with the updated modernized look, the removable screw terminals, and all of those features that are part of this next generation family.
Great, thank you. And this is probably a question for both Chris and Liana. Let me see here. Do you have to have an SNE or an SNC installed to be able to install the new CG or CV line of controllers?
Yeah, the CG series controllers are equipment controllers, and they communicate up within the system via BACnet MSTP. So traditionally in our hierarchy Metasys architecture, we have equipment controllers kind of on the bottom talking up to a supervisory class controller. And that is typically a network engine like an SNE or SNC series network engine. It could be an NAE 85, which was one of our software engines. And then Dana had mentioned earlier this hybrid offering, this open application server, or OAS, which combines the functionality of a network engine and a server with all of the server capabilities like the user interface, long-term data storage, potential problem areas widget, all those as potential add-ons. So it's kind of a hybrid server and engine offering if you're concerned about being able to afford both a server and a network engine. That particular offering might be suited for your particular project.
Great, thanks. I think we have time for just one more question here. So Chris, maybe you can talk a little bit more about, have there been any enhancements to the system configuration tool that help with the deployment and configuration of the Metasys user interface?
Yes, we have several productivity features that have been added, probably not only at release 11, but also at release 10.1, that makes the configuration of the equipment definitions and the spaces tree fairly easily to do. And the nice thing about that is when you leverage our tools to quickly create the equipment definitions and spaces tree, once those configurations have been made, a lot of the features that you'll see within the Metasys user interface just automatically start working. So your spaces tree will automatically build itself. The potential problem areas widget will include links to the spaces. The alarm manager, when you look at an alarm, will automatically link itself to the appropriate equipment and to the appropriate space. The equipment activity log will show links to the equipment, and then a hierarchical view of an equipment and what equipment is serving or is being served by another piece of equipment. And then finally, the fault detection and fault triage, which are really interesting and very valuable diagnostic features, will automatically configure themselves as long as those equipment definitions and spaces trees are defined. That all kind of comes without any additional configuration beyond those equipment and space definitions.
Great, thank you, Chris. And we are just a little bit over the allotted time for today's event. So in the interest of letting everyone get back to their busy days, we'll go ahead and conclude today's presentation. I know we did have a few other questions come in, so we'll make sure to get those answered for you in a document after the event. So, and once again, a copy of today's presentation as well as a recording of the event will be emailed out to all attendees shortly after today's event. And once again, thank you sincerely for taking the time out of your day to join us. We hope after you've seen this, you're as excited about Metasys Release 11 as we are. And as always, thank you again for your time, and stay safe and be well.